Hello everyone, in this video I'll be taking you through a Flame Blade Light Cleric build guide for Baldur's Gate 3. So this is absolutely insane amounts of damage, and it's going to be mostly fire damage. So we're going to be using the Flame Blade here, which you can get pretty easily. I have a guide on how to do that, which I'll link in the description, but we're going to actually start off as one level in the fighter, because this will give us Constitution saving throw proficiency. It'll give us all the martial weapons, heavy armor, so we can go into the Light Cleric and get all of this, plus the Constitution saving throw proficiency will help us hold Spirit Guardians, which is very powerful. As for our fighting style, I think two-weapon fighting is probably the best one to go with overall, because this will allow us to do a lot of damage with two flame blades. So yeah, we got that synergy. However, if you want to use just one, you can go with the dueling, which will add 2 damage if you use a shield, and even defense plus 1 armor class is incredible. As for our ability scores, we do want to have some kind of spread between a few different stats. Ideally, we're going to be going with strength, because these do scale off of our strength. So that means we would likely want to be using heavy armor, as we're not going to get the dexterity bonus to our medium armor class. So for dexterity, you do still want a decent bit of dexterity, but we also need wisdom. So that's where we get to be a little bit multi-attribute dependent. So you can go with something like this, 16 wisdom. This still gives us a good amount of casting. And then we also have our 16 strength, 12 dexterity, 14 constitution. If you feel you're spreading yourself a little thin, you can lower constitution. However, that will lower your health. But you can, in Act 3, get the constitution amulet. So there's a lot of different gear that could work for this, which I'll be covering in this video. But first things first, we're going to hop back into Light Cleric. So this, as Action Surge is really nice, we're going to go full levels into the Light Cleric so we can get level 6 spells. Now, for our cantrips, you could, however, if you don't want Plane or Ally, you can take 2 levels of Fighter for the Action Surge. However, we're going to go at it this way. As for our cantrips, Guidance, Resistance, and Sacred Flame are all pretty solid. Produce Flame can give you a light, and you can also throw it for a little bit of fire damage. But we're going to go with the Light domain here. So this is going to give us Light as a cantrip, but also Burning Hands, Fairy Fire, which is not bad. And our subclass feature, so you can shield yourself with Divine Light, use your reaction to impose disadvantage on an attacker, possibly causing their attack to miss. And disadvantage on an attack is really huge, because it's 2 die, and they take the lowest amount, so very useful. Choose your deity, whatever you prefer. I'm going with Selune, it just makes sense. And as for our spell book, we're going to want Create Water, because this is just a spell that I feel like everyone should take advantage as a cleric, because it creates vulnerability to lightning and ice or cold damage, so that can double your damage with those. However, if you don't want to, Command is a really good spell. Healing Word for the bonus action heal to pick people up. And Sanctuary is another really good spell. You can protect yourself and an ally, as well as Guiding Bolt for the attack roll advantage. You can drop that off, because Bless is also a really nice option too. It really depends on how you want to go about this. As we increase our wisdom, we will get more slots to prepare spells with, so that's a nice thing about it. Now, level 5, we get another spell slot. I really like Create Water, but this is going to be more focused on fire, so I don't think water is going to be a good idea for that. And we do get level 2 spells, where the Cleric actually gets a nice boost. Spiritual Weapon is by far the strongest. Here we got bonus action. It takes aggro for your team, and it also can do a bit of damage. I also am a fan of Hold Person for the critical hits on attacks. That's really nice, just to support your martial classes. And we get another cantrip here. We can take Light, or Produce Flame. And for our next leveled spell, we can add back Guiding Bolt. Is some, if you don't use Guiding Bolt, go with something else, but it's not terrible. 46 radiant damage. As for our feat, Ability Improvement's probably the best one to go with. However, Savage Attacker has some merit if you want to go with more of a melee focus, but we're going to go and take our Wisdom up to 18 there. Now, I will do another video on this build, maybe with a more martial class, like a fighter, but I was requested to do a Light Cleric, because this can be a really interesting one at this level here when we get ourselves Spirit Guardians. Spirit Guardians is going to be our bread and butter. We're going to cast this, run around casting Fireball, and doing some blade attacks if we want to, with our pretty decent damage output. We also get Glyph of Warding, which is nice to have. We can take Mass Healing Word to give us a bonus action heal, and we can apply Blade Ward to the team with that, so that's a nice little bonus too. Improved Warding Flare allows us to protect an ally as well, which is quite awesome. And then for our next leveled spell, yeah, Mass Healing Word's great. I also am a huge fan of Animate Dead. I really like having extra things to take hits for the team, and also sometimes deal some damage. As for our level 4 spell, Death Ward is pretty nice, but you can have someone at your camp cast this on everyone. Banishment's okay, not a huge fan. And freedom of movement's alright too. You can get a lot of boots that will reduce the effects of, or remove the effects of terrain. But it can be a really good one too to have just as a panic button. Now, I think that even just Animate Dead or going back, like Aid is a good spell, and even Create or Destroy Water. I'm going to go with Animate Dead just because it's a nice spell to have. Once we get to level 5, we will have more options. We also get our Potent Cantrips, so this adds our Wisdom modifier to our Cleric Cantrips. And look at that, we'll be able to get our +5 to Wisdom checks here, so pretty nice. As for our next leveled spell, again, these two can be cast at camp, but you can take them. They're pretty decent options. I'm going to go with Create Water because, you know, sometimes you want to destroy water. If there's water and you want to deal fire damage, that's my justification, I guess. Once we get to level 5 spells, though, we get some good ones. Like, Insect Plague can give us some difficult terrain, which can be pretty useful in a large area. Greater Restoration's not bad if you have someone that's stunned, but Planar Binding is also another decent one. Contagion's not bad. Poisons a target. You can actually do this outside of combat, and it can affect the target for a while, which is really good. Doesn't end once they get hit with it. It goes to long rest. We're going to go Planar Binding. It's not the best, but once we get our next, in 2 levels time, we'll be able to pick some even better spells. We get our Divine Intervention at Cleric level 10. It's just a nice panic button, especially for a certain fight in Act 3. I'm going to take Mass Cure Wounds because that can be pretty useful if we're going with, we're going to switch out our gauntlets here. But now that we got our level 11 in Cleric, we get to take some pretty awesome spells. So Planar Ally, extremely useful. Beseech an otherworldly entity for aid, so we can get, I'll show you the options. It's just nice to have an extra ally that's actually very tanky as well, so you can cast your Spirit Guardians and run around. Blade Barrier is not bad. Create Undead is another spell it's nice to have sometimes. It's like a way better version of Animate Dead. Heal for the 70 healing's cool. It also has a unique interaction with the Dark Urge. And Harm is okay for a necrotic spell. If you use the Staff of Cherished Necromancy, this can be a pretty decent spell to have on. And even Blade Ward's not a bad crowd control-ish spell. However, it gets kind of tricky when if you take too many level 6 spells, but we'll go with that there. Now, as for the way we want to play through this, it's going to make me go to my hireling there. So, yeah, you actually have to use a hireling to get the double flame blades. But our damage output for melee attacks is actually really big. Like, we got 13 to 38 damage. It's a 5d6 plus 8. This is using strength potions to set our strength up to 27, so you do have to take that into consideration since we are splitting ourselves kind of down the middle. But at our core, we're a caster. So use Wall of Fire as your crowd control. You can get even like scrolls of grease to set up grease ahead of combat and then light that on fire. I'll show you the planar allies. So we get 3 options here with the Cambion, the Diva, and the Genie. I'm a big fan of the Diva here just for the Revivify and Concussive Smash as well as the Wrathful Smite. So it does have a lot of good choices, but the Cambion kind of makes sense for a fire build, so I'll call that one in there. Will can also call one in, which is kind of cool. Or I guess if you have the Infernal Rapier, so that's a good weapon if you're going Charisma focus, but he just further adds to the fire damage, which is nice to have. So typically we'd want to summon them in. Flaming Spear too. It does require concentration, but you can have it explode and deal damage. So we typically want to set up ahead of combat with our Fire Glyph of Warding. So you can set this down. It's just easy damage to get. Tripped out my Cambion there. And then we will break our concentration there, but this is worth it. Now use Radiant or Necrotic damage depending on the situation. This can be upcast to do quite a bit of damage, so feel free to upcast it if you want to go all in on the Spirit Guardians and hope that you hold concentration. As a bonus action, we're typically going to want to call in like a spiritual weapon. Just it does have a little bit of health, but it'll tank for us and it draws aggro. But we're typically going to want to run around with our Spirit Guardians and drop fireballs. That's what the Light Cleric's good at, and that's what we want to do. We can also use some cantrips, like we can use our Sacred Flame there, which adds adds our Wisdom modifier to the damage, which is kind of nice. And also Destructive Wave is a pretty great spell too. This is one that we want to like use quite a bit, and it can also get the choice of the Radiant damage or Necrotic. This is a area of effect, so if you ever get overwhelmed, you can literally just, if they're in your Spirit Guardians, you can pop this and boom, it's just going to knock them flying, deal a ton of damage. So we got a lot of good options here in terms of damage. Scorch and Ray is another one that's going to go off of our Wisdom, which is pretty nice to have. We got Command and Hold Person for crowd control. The Cleric is a really powerful class in Baldur's Gate 3, and this Light Cleric is dealing pretty much pure fire damage because all of our attacks, if you look at the attacks, it's all just fire dice. We don't have any physical, so we're full on fire. We have an offhand attack which deals 13 to 38 damage. I think that's pretty good for an offhand attack if you ask me. So overall, this class, the Light Cleric, pretty strong. This is a requested video, so if you have any requests yourself, please let me know in the comments below. I always enjoy doing these request videos and coming up with a cool different build. But yeah, double Flame Blade Light Cleric build guide in Baldur's Gate 3. If you found this video useful, please hit the subscribe button below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.